valuing where people are at and valuing that they probably know themselves quite well and providing a safe enough environment to be able to try that out. We've had people start and want the breaks and then go, you know what, actually, nah, let's try something else.
Welcome to the Differently Aligned podcast for neurodivergent business owners. I'm Adina Levy. I'm an autistic ADHDer, business coach, speech therapist, professional educator, and multiple business owner. I support neurodivergent business owners to create businesses that are sustainable, enjoyable, impactful, profitable, and burnout free. I provide safe spaces for you to share with like-minded community who get it, me included. Everyone is welcome here, whatever your neurotype, gender, race, any other intersections and special, fantastic, unique things that make you, you are welcome here. This podcast is recorded on the Aboriginal lands of the Gadigal and Bidjigal people. I acknowledge the traditional owners, elders past and present, and I extend my respect to any First Nations people who are listening in. In this episode, you're going to hear parts of one of my guest speaker chats from the Neurodivergent Business Collective. That's my membership for neurodivergent business owners. And each month I bring a guest speaker who's an expert on a particular topic related to business and or somebody with lived experience of being a neurodivergent business owner. My members get full access to the whole chat and all the insights, all the best nuggets of ideas, suggestions, resources, etc. But there is so much gold that I want to share with you. So I am bringing parts of these conversations to the Differently Aligned podcast, where you're going to get a real taste of the guest speakers' experience, perspectives, skills, and some of their top tips right here on the podcast. Remember, if you want to get the full conversation, head over to the link in the show notes to check out the Neurodivergent Business Collective. And you can either join us if we're open or hop on the wait list if we're not open at that time. And I'll keep you in the loop. Hello, Haylea.
Hello.
It is so good to have you here as our January guest speaker. You're kicking off the year.
Thank you very much. Yeah, it was really exciting to get the email putting out for the nominees for this spot. And I was like, start of the year ambition. Like, why not? Let's jump on the chance.
I absolutely love that. I love your topic. So Hayley's going to be sharing all about innovative accessibility, how to balance creativity, team accommodations, and sustainable business growth. And I am so excited to hear everything you have to share that you've learned, the way you do this. Maybe there've been some missteps, I wonder. I'm curious.
Quite a title there, isn't it? No, but I hope that, just sharing some of where we've come from and opening BC in psychology especially, and sort of how all of that's been going over the last couple of years in this very new and upcoming and affirming and accommodating and accessible landscape, right? Like, just helps other business owners and people start to reflect and pivot maybe some of their own practices.
I love it. And that's what we're here to do, is to, share our experiences and help others. I think anyone listening can kind of get a bit of a shortcut towards the things that, that you've learned along the way. And so for those who've not had the pleasure of meeting Haylea, she's a late identified AuDHD psychologist, passionate advocate for neurodivergent individuals, and is the founder of Be Seen Psychology. And I just have to pause to say your business name is stunning.
Thank you very much. Australia Day 2 years ago, it was spending the whole day sort of going like, okay, this is the next step, what do I call it? And went through a lot of different thoughts, and my initials are HRH, so it felt appropriate to go something like Her Royal Highnessy, but that felt a bit too on the nose. And then I was like, okay, what matters to me in practice? And that's where it was like that, the feedback you get of that, validation and being seen was like, that's it, like, here we are.
I love that. You really have conveyed so much in those two little words. So very well done. I would have liked the other name too, Her Royal Highness Psychologist.
Sort of HRH.
Don't put it in the bin entirely.
Yeah.
And as you're going to hear, Haylea is absolutely dedicated to creating spaces where neurodivergent clients and clinicians can truly be seen, heard, celebrated for who they are. She has a small team of neurodivergent employees. How many at the moment?
So I've got 2 psychs at the moment about to take on a student and a admin.
So small, thriving team.
Yes, yeah, exactly. We've had a little bit of change of like what that looks like throughout the couple of years, but sticking small and just yeah, slow growth is our aim rather
Awesome.
than sort of going too big too soon.
And maybe my hope for you, and maybe you'll share this, I hope that that leads to sustainable everything, the growth in the business, how it fits for you and your team as well. And so so you do adult autism and ADHD assessments and provide supervision in that space as well. I'm just going to say, because I know some people are going to be wondering, what are your books like? I know there's going to be people going, oh, I think I might want an assessment. Are you full up? Do you do wait list? Are you books? Where are you at?
We're not too bad at the moment, actually. We try and keep the books open so people can be sort of booking in advance. I think for myself, I've got until like I'm sort of March, April-ish, but there's sooner with Zoe, and now with the prac student coming on too, I'll have some more assessment availability. Therapy is always the harder one to wrangle, obviously, but yeah, it's nice. We try and keep that flowing so that people aren't stuck on that waitlist for forever.
That's amazing. So look, well, I'm just going to go out and say, well, I haven't personally experienced your assessment services. I would just say anyone who's watching and wondering about assessment, maybe get in touch with Haylea. There will be all the details and links below the video. Obviously, people might see this into the future, so things may change, but I'm sure they can always go and have a look at your website and inquiry.
We're always happy to find other pathways for people to help people link in with wherever, because the important part is being seen. We don't care who by.
What do you find is your relationship these days between the work and the other bits of your life? I've used the word balance in the question, but we can even question the word balance. You can tell me about that for you. Like, how do you balance to some degree what business is in your life, how it fits in with other parts of you?
Yeah, the boundaries can be transparent at times, like if you know what I mean, like not hard. Like
Amorphous.
yes, yeah, that sort of blurring
Very that word.
thing. I guess, I work from home. My partner is my admin. So there's not much like separation, which is very, very different to how I started psychology with an hour drive there and back. And, that visualization of putting the things down, picking it back up again on that drive. I think I very much have the ADHD to help with a lot of that, in that, like if it's not in front of me, I can forget about it, sort of thing, as much as anyone does with a lot of this, and trying to put as much sort of down physically as possible to separate those things out. And it's definitely balanced, I think, to me, in the flexibility that comes from working at home, setting my own hours, being able to do those sorts of things with a lot more freedom or autonomy than I guess you get working under anybody else. And again, with a small enough and really great team that can sort of run themselves a lot as well, so that you're not having to be constantly on. It's a nice balance. And I think the passion side of things makes it easier to step into, right? That real excitement of, like what brings on the days where I'm like, oh, you just don't want to work for whatever reason. And then you're like, oh, I've got this client, or I get to see, like, we've got to hear, like, be seen, catch up at lunch, or, it gets you in the chair, it gets you talking, and then suddenly you're doing the things and the invoices are getting done, and all of that other stuff just rolls with it. It's nice.
That's nice. It does sound like a nice form of balance for you, that you've got that level between like the passion and the joy and the interest, and you recognize the other parts of your life exist. I love that idea of using the ADHD strength. Like if I don't see it, it doesn't exist anymore. So it sounds like by the looks of it, you've got a little office that is just, that's your work zone.
Yep.
Clearly, I'm not doing that right now because I'm here on my couch on my laptop. But that's like, I usually honor that with my own office, and that's a cool idea, which is making me think already. You've given me this sense of like, how can I add to this separation? Because I do have my laptop at various points at home, and I still do work everywhere. I do it in the kitchen, whatever. Thank you for that. I've taken my own thought already.
Yeah.
I just wonder then, has it been, you're obviously more established now and you've grown into this version of the business and the team's a little established. Do you feel that that level of balance that you have now was always there to a degree, or were there times in the business that it was completely out the window?
Yeah, I think that there's definitely been times where that juggle was harder, and again, being in a position where like just Adam being admin now it means that there's two of us on one kiddo and a business. So we can divide, like it's a better ratio than a one looking after two, right?
I
So
love the idea that the business is like a child.
yeah, right. And that's exactly how we just got through the last 7 weeks of holidays. It's like, okay, who's on who today? Are you working or are you on kiddo? So it's sort of, yeah, how do we split that and still have enough of the time that we need as well? So yeah, I think those sorts of things come along with it. Obviously, there's a lot more in the setting up of any business, right? That takes more time to get to that more automatic running of, templates and even just the reminders for clients and things like that, that is very much more manual to start with. And then it's got into a much nicer place where we can divide and conquer because we've got the bodies to be able to do that.
And it sounds like a very conscious effort from what you've described, that you explicitly talk about who's doing what role at which point. And that to me sounds like a very useful strategy that may not be so obvious to all of us. Like, you need some time to work. Maybe just tell those people around you that you need that time and space.
Yep. And I think that especially not having to stay on the one particular role, even within, I mean, there's obviously a lot more fluidity within Adam and I, and I'm not going to ask one of the psychs to just, you're on kiddo today. Although if we weren't all from home, that would be a lot easier. But things that are, beyond in the little day-to-day tasks, like, I've got one staff member who just despises phone calls, like having to make phone calls to people, all of that sort of stuff, right? Whereas like that is a no biggie for me at all. So let me take that off your plate. I can easily do that. And it means that they're able to have the spoons to do social media posts or, those sorts of things. Or like there's more of that divide up that doesn't have to be very like the cemented roles of like, a great example is how Adam, being our admin, is, he won't mind me saying, terrible at calendars. He can't keep a physical calendar and like an image of a calendar in his head to save himself. So you think that wouldn't work very well as an admin role, but he has not only like strategies and scaffolds around, but I'm going to be in that calendar anyway. I am like, it's a natural for me. I couldn't not be, even if somebody was doing it perfectly. So if I just do that, then he can do all of the stuff that I don't want to do, all of the zero invoicing.
That's so interesting. And so this thread, I feel like it's going to come up. I'm preempting it a little bit, but the accommodations come from knowing yourself and knowing each other. I think, at least in how I do, teaching about business stuff, it's like you can't figure out your aligned business until you know what you need. I mean, you can kind of keep guessing and trying stuff, but I think it's a real conscious effort to know ourselves, and then we can start to figure out what accommodations, supports, directions will fit. That's my philosophy and how I see the process. I'd love to hear how, I think you've touched on a few, but what are some of the ways that you support the team across, all different roles and things? Obviously, don't give too much info about each person. I'm sure you wouldn't anyway, but just some of the other ways that the roles might look a little different to fit them, but also your process. I'd love to hear, anything else you have to share about how you discover each other.
Yes, yeah. And I think that's where it all sort of ties back to that same feeling of the shaving foam, right? That really noticing in yourself what sparks that at any and at what moment, because sometimes that same thing won't, 6 months down the track has lost its spark, and that's okay. But finding that, really thinking about those things and being okay to sort of trial and error some things out, because how neurodivergent people who often like to see an end product of something, like how do you even start to know where to get to if you're standing at point A and you're trying to get to point Z and you're going like, oh, where, how, what, like, So I think that, reflecting constantly and encouraging the team to constantly reflect as well, by having those discussions around like what's happening, what's like, how are you feeling and things, how's your energy levels going, like, are you noticing similar, and sort of being alert to the patterns that come up throughout discussions or supervisions or just even daily, like weekly chats, and going like, okay, it sounds like, this is getting a bit repetitive or a bit, you know, like we're done with this process. Like, how do we look at that better? And yeah, so that's the sort of process we get to. And some of the places we've gone in accommodations have been things like, I mean, the biggest accommodation slash it's like a weird accommodation because I guess it's just how our business has been set up in the work from home environment. But we have talked a lot about maintaining work from home or getting a clinic or anything like that. And ultimately, I think the work from home works for our team as it stands right now. Who's to know what that looks like in the future? But the ability to, wear your own clothes, like, a day without school drop off or pickup is like, yes, pajama bottoms, perfect. Temperature, noise, scent, all of that sort of stuff that you can control so much easier in your own space. We allow flexibility, autonomy in schedules, have general business hours, but how you run that or how many days it sort of works so might look different to everyone. Some people really like to just smash out their mornings and have the rest of the afternoon. Some top and tail, some have had so many gaps between each, things like that. And so again, as long as it's all sustainable to each person, it's not trying to put one person's belief system onto anyone else that not believing that, oh, like 6 in a day is too many if that works for them to then be more productive on an admin day or on a day off, whatever that looks like.
We have a question from one of our community members in the collective, and she was asking for suggestions on how to manage time more effectively when engrossed in creating something for work. Being hyper-focused sometimes means taking time away for other priority work. And I also very selfishly want to hear your take on this because I'm dealing with it right now where I had this new idea and all these other important projects that are well in the middle of being done and promotions and so on. And I've got this new train of thought in the last 24 hours that I cannot set aside. So please help us.
Yeah. It's a great question, isn't it? And I think one of those things again that is just so hard to hold. I am constantly shifting, evolving, and how to do this myself. I am really trying to allow enough time in my schedule, my calendar, to have enough blocks for what could be hyper-focused work whilst not forcing myself into hyper-focused work, if that makes sense. Like allowing those times of like, this is a chunk that can be used for a project, for something that just takes hold, for rest, if that's what I need, and just nothing. And sometimes that lines up, right, with the brain turning on and the executive functioning. And sometimes that can be even like keeping a running list for me. I use Trello as well as like, I've gone back to a paper diary, which worked for a few months. So I'm hoping, but in a very different way, keeping a bit of a project idea list so that if you've got that space and you're like, oh, but then suddenly all of the thoughts you've ever had in your entire life have suddenly left your brain. Does that ever happen? Yep, no. You can go like, oh, okay, yeah, that thing that I wanted to do with the like, yeah, okay, let's do some of that. Or yeah, sort of taps away. And I mean, I love nothing more than just suddenly, deciding to launch a group and so therefore having to get the thing done before it starts. Like, work
I've
backwards.
certainly never been guilty of that. Absolutely.
It's fine. Like, you find printing presses that can print Express and you mail workbooks Express and you just hope that they get all across Australia by Monday. It's fine. And those things are nice, right? Like that, again, the other stuff sort of happens eventually, right? Like it just always does. And if it doesn't, then there's some things to like realign. But if you find yourself like constantly stressing about the things that always get done, like I do, I think putting it down, going like, okay, what's my brain actually going to do? Because I could spend the next 3 hours now clicking through calendar weeks, not actual or emails, scrolling up and down the email trend, like inbox going like, oh, I can't really answer any of this, like, or don't have that drive. Or you could spend the next 3 hours developing something or putting all that project sort of stuff time down to, and now you've got more in your bucket to come back. Like then suddenly the emails are done in 10 minutes, right? Like if that's allowing your brain to do that sort of thing, I think it's okay.
It's a very neurodiversity affirming way of seeing this, where this hyper focus, and I think many of us can recognize, if we are the type of person who can get into hyper focus, we recognize that it can bring strengths.
Yeah.
And then allowing it, like building that into your life in a very conscious way, and not waiting for hyperfocus to accidentally fall upon you, which it will still do. But I love that idea of having blocks in your calendar. Also very like PDA friendly. It's like, if you feel like doing your project now, you can, but whatever, you can have a nap too.
Yeah.
Oh, great.
Absolutely. Can rest. I love working in some body doubling time. Like, I know one of my staff and I had dedicated project time where we could just come together for those things that didn't have a deadline but wanted to be done but didn't really like, and we could just do our own things over Zoom. But it's just nice to have somebody else there. And if that works as well, that's like not quite the hyper focus, but it's still like that chipping away. And I think as well, like something I really have taken on in the last year, especially from the webinar, from like very helpful chats around ADHD, hyperfocus, and supporting your body around that time as well, right? So trying to maintain being fed, watered, all of those things so that you can then go without, keeping snacks at your desk. My water bottle now flashes at me to drink, those sorts of things. Yeah, cheers. Those sorts of things that just, it means that you're not draining yourself as physically after the hyperfocus. So you've still got some left in the tank, maybe to finish off the emails or whatever.
That's it for this episode of Differently Aligned. If you found this conversation helpful and you enjoyed these snippets, just imagine what else is waiting for you inside the Neurodivergent Business Collective. It is a world of resources, support, coaching, monthly webinars, guest speaker chats, just so much support for my neurodivergent business community. You'll find the link in the show notes to go and check out the Neurodivergent Business Collective. And I know that myself and my guests are really open to hearing from you. What has been really helpful, what's resonated for you, go and give them a follow, check out their work, and we'd love to keep the conversation going with you. Thank you so much for listening. Get in touch with me on Instagram. You'll find me there, neurodivergent.business. Have a beautiful day.